Hi everyone, this is Andrea McKenzie for WRIT 1003 with the recording Critiquing Colleagues, Strategies for Life. After you've finished your team report and your team presentation, you have one more element you need to complete, and that is an evaluation of your team members' work, including your own work for this project. This team evaluation is required and it's also confidential. You will not be sharing it with anyone but your tutorial leader and possibly me as the course director. So no one else is going to see it and the contents will not be shared. It is a required element, even though it is ungraded, so you do have to write one and submit it to e-class by midnight on April 5th. Please include your name and your team's name on the very first page. Why am I asking you to assess colleagues? It's because it's excellent practice for when you're working in industry. Whether you're an employee or whether you're a manager, you are going to be evaluated in professional settings. This is a good opportunity for you to practice that now. Evaluations are a common practice in all fields. They're usually done annually, and on your evaluation usually rests such things as promotions and pay raises. Evaluations also include professional development areas, especially if you're entry level or a junior colleague. That means that your manager is going to identify your strengths based on the work you've done in the past year, and also identify areas where you need development and provide a plan for doing so. You can expect when you're working that your manager will complete such an evaluation. They are standard, in fact. Most companies have a set of questions that managers have to complete. They will then give you the evaluation, talk it through with you, and you are provided an opportunity to respond to that evaluation. Keep in mind that the best evaluations are based on evidence. That is, it's not a case of just saying, well, you're doing well here or you're not doing very well here. It's a case of the manager should have kept a record of your work over the course of the year and should be able to provide specific examples that justify the evaluation categories that you fall into. They are supposed to look at specific work situations for those examples, and we will expect you to do the same thing. Some managers, in order to do this, especially if you have a number of employees that you are managing and that you're expected to evaluate, some managers actually keep a log or a diary. I did that myself when I was in industry because it was the most satisfactory way of tracking my employees' progress, the good work they had done, and places where I really felt we needed a plan to ensure their professional development. So your job through this small assignment is to evaluate your colleagues' work and your own work over the course of the team project for WRIT 1003. The requirements are that you include one paragraph for each team member and that you must include yourself and a paragraph about your own work. You are to use the criteria that are listed in this presentation, and you are to justify your evaluation through examples. I'll be showing you some in just a few minutes. You are also to use a professional tone throughout your evaluations and to focus on work, not on personalities. We're asking you then to evaluate your colleagues' work according to the following 4 criteria. I will break those down in a moment. The first one is professionalism. The second one is communication skills. The third one is the quality of their work. The fourth one is teamwork. Under each of these areas, we want you to focus on the person's work, not on the person or the personality. These, by the way, are 4 areas that companies do assess you in, though they may have many more categories. Professionalism involves such things as reliability. Can you count on this colleague? Are they punctual to meetings and with deadlines? Do they take responsibility for work? Do they meet the deadlines you've set? And if they cannot meet those deadlines or they cannot attend meetings, do they promptly communicate with other team members to let them know? Keep in mind, a compassionate approach to this is essential during these times. People may have illness or family emergencies to cope with, and they cannot contact the team immediately. Take that into account when you evaluate whether this person has showed professionalism over the course of the project. Communication skills is one of the top 10 skills that most employers look for. And to break it down into manageable bits and pieces, what you're looking for is a colleague's ability to communicate ideas, and moreover, a colleague's willingness to communicate ideas. Some people may start the team project quietly and build towards more confidence as the project goes on. So those are 2 of the things you're looking for. A third one that is critically important for any kind of teamwork is the willingness to listen to others' ideas and perspectives. To be a good team member, you must be willing to listen, to hear other people's ideas, and moving to the 4th quality, negotiating skills, you must be willing to politely and pleasantly negotiate when it comes to a case of making a decision or making a compromise. So look for these qualities in your colleagues and again, also in yourself. The 5th and another essential indicator of communication skills is an appropriate professional tone. Is your colleague professional at all times? By which I mean, do they show respect for others? You can tell this by the way they speak to others. You can tell by such things as whether they remain calm when things get heated, whether they try to calm a situation down, or whether they contribute to heated discussion. It isn't always possible, and it does depend on circumstances, but all of these things go into good communication skills. The quality of work is also obviously important, and here you're looking for specific instances of whether a person has been thorough, whether their work is sound, whether it's relevant to the team's purpose or whether they've gone off on their own bat, and also the amount of work in relation to others' workloads. Now, the amount of work seems to be a fairly contentious issue when it comes to listening to your accounts of other team projects you've done. So keep in mind, it's a case of, did the person do a reasonable amount of work for this project? Did they scamp on the work, or did they try to take over the project? In other words, did they fulfill their own obligations to the team? And did they allow others to fulfill their obligations to the team? So keep in mind, those 4 qualities fall under quality of work. Obviously, you want specific instances of thoroughness, soundness, the relevance of their work to the team's purpose, and the amount in relation to others. The final quality that we're asking you to evaluate for each team member, including yourself, is teamwork. Obviously important throughout any team project. First of all, did the person demonstrate teamwork, or were they more of an individual in the sense of instead of working towards the team's progress, they worked towards their own? Were they willing to give up an idea of their own if another seemed better, and if the team seemed to agree that that other person's was better? The give and take is part of teamwork and part of working together. So were they indeed willing to compromise? Did they help the team towards compromises? Next is their willingness to help other team members reach their goals for the team's sake. We all know, once again, that these are times when we must be compassionate, when we must reach out to others and try to help them when they are having difficulties, perhaps struggling, perhaps coping with difficult situations at home or outside of school. So, were your team members individually willing to reach out that helping hand? I would qualify that, though, by saying there's a difference between reaching out a helping hand and trying to take over the project. So you have to make the distinction on those grounds. Now I'm going to move to examples of evaluations, good ones like the one on this screen, and not so good ones, as we'll see in a minute. The important thing is, and this is just following right through this entire course, is show us by providing evidence. Don't just tell us. Gandalf's enthusiasm and creativity were major factors in evolving original solutions to our case study. Their creativity brought fresh perspectives to our project. For instance, when our survey results turned out differently from what we expected, their suggestion of refocusing the project to look at the student perspective put our project back on track and on schedule. Notice in that part, the qualities that Gandalf showed have not only been named, that is, enthusiasm and creativity, but the impact on the project has also been described, that they were major factors in evolving original solutions to the case study. But it isn't a case of just telling. This writer also showed us a specific example using the survey results and Gandalf's contribution through them to bringing the project back on track and on schedule. Let's continue. In addition, the written work and oral presentation were thorough and sound. So we're focusing here on positive contributions. We then move to a bit of a problem with Gandalf, however. Gandalf's lateness, however, caused our team difficulties. They were late for every meeting and missed every team deadline. Note the specific evidence there. You could say Gandalf missed 3 out of 5 meetings or missed the team deadline without extenuating circumstances. This person has kept track of this problematic quality of lateness. We now move on to the impact that lateness had on the team. This put our individual schedules out and jeopardized the team schedule. So clearly it had an impact. All team members ended up with a heavy workload at the end of the project as a result of Gandalf's tardiness. So we move from the individual team members and the impact on them to the impact on all team members as a result of this tardiness. So I think you can see here that this author has first named the qualities according to the list given, has talked about the positive aspects and strengths of Gandalf first and their impact on the project using specific evidence, then turns to a problematic quality, states its impact, uses specific evidence, and brings it into alignment with the team's goals and the individual members at the same time. I mentioned in a couple of lectures that during the times we live in, we should take a compassionate approach to absence, and that we should always ask if a person is okay before asking them why they were absent. That is, checking on the person and then checking on the reason why they're absent. We may find that they have been absent for very good reasons. In this particular instance, here's a way to write about a person who did miss meetings, but unlike Gandalf on the previous slide, had good reason for absence. Unfortunately, due to causes such as family illness, Fei Min had to be absent from 50% of our meetings. Once again, specific evidence, the number of meetings absent from. She always, however, emailed the team leader ahead of time with her reasons for being absent, a summary of her progress to date, and suggestions for the agenda items that week. So Fei Min is showing professionalism, as is this writer, through contacting the team leader, sending a progress report, sending suggestions. Here is the impact. As a result, Fei Min shouldered her full share of the project workload, took an active part in shaping the project, and did not hinder the team's progress. So that's an example of how to assess and yet at the same time show that the person, though they could not be with the team at these moments, still contributed to the projects, still took responsibility, was still professional. You need to know that when you're in the position of being a manager and having to assess employees, you always need to use a professional tone. When you do employee evaluations, generally speaking, it's a legal requirement, and the employee can actually challenge your evaluation if it is not written in a fair and unbiased manner. So a professional tone is critical. Here is an example of irritation with a person showing through. This is not the kind of evaluation we want. Gandalf was a continual pain to work with. He was loud and overbearing and never gave anyone a chance to say anything. I wouldn't work with him again in a million years. Of course, what shows through in this so-called evaluation is irritation, dislike, discouragement, really. This is the kind of thing that you should not write. There is no specific evidence here. There is no measured tone. There is no stating the impact on the team. So this is the kind of so-called evaluation that really isn't. You need to avoid this kind of language and this kind of assessment. Here, in contrast, is a much more professional assessment of the same problematic area, where it begins with Gandalf's strengths instead of areas where Gandalf clearly needs to work on communications, development, etc., etc. Gandalf's reliability and the thoroughness of their work contributed greatly to our project. So beginning once again by naming the qualities Gandalf contributed and that they had a positive impact. They designed, tabulated, and wrote the discussion for the student survey on which we based our solutions, and was prompt in completing this part of the work as well as meeting all other team deadlines. So here we have specific evidence of specific instances of what Gandalf did well and of the work that they contributed. We then move on to the problem areas. Despite this contribution, Gandalf was occasionally difficult to work with. They tended to try to override other people's ideas, and it took continual intervention to allow everyone on the team the opportunity to voice an opinion. This problem did slow down the team's project, especially in the early stages when we were trying to agree on solutions to our case study. So once again, we have specific instances without naming names. We have the effort it took of other team members to keep the project on track. and we have the impact on the project that this problematic behavior caused. But you will notice that the irritation is not present. This is objective, it is professional. So why am I asking you to write in this particular way? It's to a large extent because your credibility is reflected in what you write. We can tell if you do a professional job on evaluation, if you're showing fairness, if you're acknowledging other people's strengths alongside areas that you feel they could still work on. If you provide evidence, then your case is strengthened. If you write with hostility, if you don't provide evidence, if you expect us to believe claims without that kind of evidence or without showing the impact on the team, your credibility goes down. Writing fair and objective assessments in a professional tone shows you in a good light. It shows you as a team player, as a problem solver, and as someone who's focused on getting the job done. And please don't forget to evaluate yourself and to assess the qualities you showed throughout this team project. What can you improve on yourself at the same time that you're assessing your colleagues? That concludes my talk about critiquing colleagues and doing professional evaluations. These slides will be up in PDF form as well as in this lecture format for the time being during week 23 of WRIT 1003. This is Andrea McKenzie saying thanks for listening and signing off for now. Good luck with your projects, and we'll talk soon.